Am I the a-hole for not telling my parents that the event they were missing was my wedding? Buckle up, guys. This will be kinda long. So I, 27 female, have a younger brother, Mike, 21 male. He is the definition of a man-child and a mama's boy. Always complaining, always expecting others to bow to him, just overall an a-hole. Ever since he was born, my parents fussed over him for everything. He's not special needs or had a traumatic birth or anything of the sort. He was just born, and my parents completely discarded me. My mom, 50 female especially. She went from a loving mother to one of those boy moms that people make fun of on the internet. My father, 50 male, still showed me love and support, but has always been too much of a coward to stand up to my mother and let me win at least once. The only one who stood up for me was my grandpa, 76 male, who always called my parents out on their BS and never liked my brother. I remind him of his late wife, my grandma, and we have a very special bond. But he lives on the other side of the country and I could never see him often. Mike knows how our mom prefers him and loves to shove it in my face. Because of this and his behavior, we've always been at odds. He's spoiled, a brat and an awful human. I can't remember how many times I ended up in trouble for things I did better than him or for things he framed me with. His only talent are his football skills. He won a scholarship to a nice college out of state. My parents didn't spend a dime on my education because apparently my fund had been used to cover expenses after a fire, just for me to discover years later that said money were given to Mike to buy a car and a house. It's at public university that I met Lucas. He was the first person I was really drawn to there. Of course, I met new people who are now my dearest friends, and thanks to them and Lucas, who was my best friend for years before we got together, I managed to move out of my parents' house. Now both Lucas and I are well known in our fields and have very good salaries. Now to the main issue. Lucas proposed to me a year ago. We're very private people, so we didn't post it on social media or anything, and when I told my parents, they dismissed it with "that's nice." I'm starting to think they downright didn't listen to me at all. We decided that we wanted a nice but simple ceremony and reception with our friends and relatives. Lucas convinced me to invite my parents and brother, but they never responded to the invite. And whenever I went to visit and began to talk about my wedding, without mentioning it was a wedding, my mom would always speak over me and my brother's accomplishments and wild adventures. At one point, I got fed up with it and interrupted my mom to tell her that there was an event I was planning to organize, whose date was unmovable. She told me that they couldn't attend because my brother was playing the last game of the season that very same day and wanted them to be there. This favoritism didn't surprise me. They missed my ballets, shows, and both my high school and university graduation for things about him. At this point, I wanted to be petty. I told both my parents that it wasn't a problem to miss this event, purposely omitted the fact that this event was my wedding, and didn't insist further. Flash forward to a few weeks ago, I got married. It was perfect. My family, Lucas's family, and our friends were all there, and we had a blast. My grandpa was happy to give me away, and it was just perfect. My relatives asked me multiple times why my parents weren't there with us. I was honest, and simply said that they had my brother's game to attend and couldn't come. They gave me a few looks, and my grandpa was visibly angry for a while, but otherwise nothing strange happened. After the reception, Lucas and I left for our honeymoon and were phone-free for the whole duration of the trip. But once we got back, we discovered that a crap storm was welcoming us home. I turned my phone on and was unable to even unlock it before a storm of notifications popped up. Most of them were from my mother and brother. Mike called me all sorts of nasty names and insulted me because apparently one of my paternal aunts posted the photos of the wedding on Facebook and captioned it with a very obvious dig at my parents, especially my mom, for missing the wedding. The post apparently went viral in my parents' community, and they've been publicly shamed for their mistreatment of me. It also turns out that my grandpa personally visited my parents to go on a tirade to shame my father, his son, to the point of tears. And this seemed to be my father's breaking point, because he was so distraught for missing his only daughter's wedding and for his father's disapproval that he finally rebelled against my mom and is threatening divorce, unless she makes it up to me. I think that's the reason why my mom has been spamming my phone with messages, at first insulting and threatening and then downright pitiful, full of begging and pity parties. Now I'm at home with my husband deciding how to approach the situation. Most of my relatives, even those I didn't invite to the wedding, reached out to apologize for what I went through and to claim they had no idea this was happening at home. Can't blame any of my relatives. They all live with my grandpa on the other side of the country or in another state. But my mom's sisters and friends are belittling me for not telling my mom about the wedding, because now she's inconsolable at the thought of having missed my wedding. Personally, I think she just claims that to save face, but I'm not sure. The latest messages from my father and mother seem extremely saddened and hurt for missing my wedding. Now my family's divided on 3 fronts. The majority who is sticking by my side, my maternal aunts shaming me for hurting my mom's feelings, and my maternal grandparents who are adamant that I forgive my mom in light of her atonement. My best friends are telling me not to listen to them. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Edit, thank you so much for the feedback and love. It's overwhelming. I'm going to address the popular questions here. 1. I did inform my parents about my wedding. I sent traditional on-paper invites to all my guests and was notified that all invites had reached their addressees. I did not receive any answer from my parents and Mike, a few very distant relatives, and some people on Lucas's side. I did reach out to all of them through message to double-check, and those who hadn't replied told me they couldn't come. I asked my parents and brother via text, but they didn't respond. I was left on read. Knowing them and given all the things I had to plan, I didn't bother insisting. 2. I didn't repeat the date of my wedding because I had already been told there was my brother's game. Plus, every time I insisted on highlighting my celebrations to get an answer, I was always told that it wasn't that important and to not be pissy and bother, because some things were simply more important than me. At this point, I think it's fair for me to not insist anymore. It's not worth the effort. 3. I didn't keep my wedding a secret. I avoided telling my parents that it was my wedding to see if they would be interested in the slightest. But surprise, surprise, they weren't. Despite this, I did openly talk about my wedding with my aunts and uncles. My mother was in the room with us a few times when I discussed venues or dress shops with my aunt, the Facebook post one. But sometimes my mom was on the phone, and other times she was just chatting with other people. She never paid attention. When I talked about it during reunions, she smiled and said, "That's great, dear," and then would change the subject. Radio silence on Dad and Mike. 4. I kept in contact with them because, well, all the times I tried to go no contact in the past years, I've been harassed. I tried after my high school bachelor's and master's graduations, to which they never bothered to show up for reasons involving my brother. Every time, I was shamed for daring to turn back on my family by my parents, my brother, my maternal aunts, and my maternal grandparents. I think the turning point here is that, all those times Lucas wasn't by my side. We started dating a little after my last attempt to go no contact, and now that I have him here, I feel more confident in my stance. But before that, I wasn't this confident. As I already stated, all my paternal side lives on the other side of the country and wasn't aware of how they treated me. I did try to expose my parents once, at 14. My aunts, uncles, and grandpa reprimanded them. They faked being sorry. And then once home, I got the beating and gaslighting of my life for lying. After that, I kept in contact regularly with my paternal side, but omitting my parents' abuse out of fear, which to be honest still haunts me to this day. Only Grandpa knew, but he was always threatened to be alienated from me if he tried anything. 5. My parents and I are not from the same city. I live in a city an hour drive from my parents' small town, and they don't know my new address, because once, my brother tried to break into my apartment to steal some cash, and my mother backed him up, claiming that siblings share their goods. Now I moved, and I'll be sure not to tell them where I live. 6. My parents didn't buy my brother a car in the house before he even started high school. They bought him a car for his 16th birthday and a house near his college when he began freshman year. They didn't spend the money of my fund right away. They just lied to me to use it later for my brother, keeping it stored for later in the meantime. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They were invited. They gave a reason they weren't attending. You accepted their non-participation. Right, they were sent an invitation. When I get invitations, they are hung on the refrigerator as a reminder, and I have the decency to respond. The parents deserve everything they get. Opie needs to tell the sisters the truth. The mom is spinning it to make it sound like they were shunned by their daughter. Bold of you to assume they even opened it after seeing Opie's name. Wow, I didn't think of that. It makes perfect sense. I'm going with this. Good thinking. Not the a-hole. I'd be incredibly petty and just no contact your parents and your mom's family. See how they like being ignored? Congratulations to yourself and Lucas. May you always have happiness in each other. Yes, and what atonement is the mother supposed to do? Unless she can travel back in time and attend OP's wedding and graduations, there really is no way to atone. I'd keep the whole lot no contact. They don't add anything positive to her life. I would also inform everyone about what happened to your college fund. Exactly. There's no fixing this. Some things can't be undone, and this is one of them. There's no do-over for decades of neglect as a child. I would do as said above. No contact, as they add nothing positive to your life, and inform relatives about your college fund. You don't need them now, and you've never trusted them to do the right thing by you anyway, if you were in a situation where you needed support. If your parents are embarrassed, though, they shouldn't have done it. It wasn't one mistake. It was decades of choices. You've got your grandpa, and you might find your paternal aunts to step up. Now they know, and you have your husband. Not the a-hole. I cannot comprehend this. Just go no contact. Honestly, after all these years, what do you expect will happen differently? Any kids they have will also be ignored and treated like they are toe jam also. They have had years to atone, and neither of them did. Dad is no better. Even worse if he realized how wrong it was, but still quietly sat by and let it happen. Next story. Am I the a-hole for uninviting my sister from our wedding after she gave out info about it to my fiancé's bio parents? Wedding is next weekend. My fiancé purposely did not tell her biological parents that she was engaged or anything about our wedding. Her biological parents never did anything wrong per se. My fiancé just doesn't view them as her family, and the topic makes her uncomfortable. A couple years ago, her birth mother tried to reach out to me and a few other members of our family on Facebook, and one message reached my sister, who decided to stick her nose where it did belong because she feels for my fiancé's mother. I went low contact with my sister after that. Sister was originally invited to our wedding mostly because my mom wanted it. However, we figured out last week that my sister had shared our wedding invitation and website with my fiancé's biological father. Her bio parents then bought something off the registry and sent along a note to our house. Sister's excuse is that we didn't tell her that she wasn't allowed to share that info and that there's nothing wrong with the gift. To me, this is common freaking sense, especially since you know the reason we don't talk to you unless we have to anymore. So I said sorry, but you're no longer coming. My mom is so upset and keeps insisting I'll regret it one day. My sister is trying to say she already made a monetary investment for shoes, hair, a makeup artist appointment, a hotel by the venue, etc. In my opinion, if she cared so much, then she would have thought about her actions. My fiancé is starting to break down because my mom called her crying and I said nope. Even if you're okay with it, I'm not. Kin doesn't do kin like that. And to be clear, I said my brother-in-law is welcome to come with my nieces because I don't want them to be left out of the party all their cousins get to go. Edited to add, I guess I didn't make this clear. My fiancé was adopted when she was a few months old. Her adoptive parents are the people she considers her parents, and they're very involved with the wedding and her life. Not a-hole. I think most people commenting have missed the point that, according to OP's post, they are her bio parents, not the parents who raised her. I'd only reached out to her 2 years ago, hence her having no relationship with them. I'd be upset with the betrayal OP's sister showed. She knew there was no contact or relationship between them and gave them all the info anyway. I met my biological mother and half-brother in late 2020. They aren't my family. I tried having a relationship with them. Sometimes things are not meant to be. I'd be livid at OP's sister. Be clearer to your obtuse sister. You invited people who are not invited, so now we have to get security involved. Do you realize that my future parents-in-law are put in a weird situation because you were so uncouth, so vulgar, as to impertinently invite people to a sacred ceremony when you're not even hosting it? Who do you think you are? Your behavior is wildly inappropriate. We do not know what you'll do next, how you will next intrude and impose unwanted things in our lives, and our natural reaction is to distance ourselves from you. If she legit apologizes profusely, ease up and let her come, because maybe she is actually just clueless. If she's defensive, stand your ground, but those nieces aren't coming if she doesn't come. Luckily, we already had security because the venue requires it if you're serving liquor. But yeah, we are concerned about them trying to show up. I don't think my sister would, because it doesn't go along with her victim narrative if she makes a scene. She's definitely going to be vague posting the whole time though. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister with her wedding planning because she didn't include me as a bridesmaid? I, 28 female, have a younger sister, Lucy, 25 female, who is getting married in a few months. We've always been close, so I was really surprised when she didn't ask me to be a bridesmaid. Instead, she chose her friends and left me out. When I asked her about it, she said she wanted to keep her bridal party small and only included friends who have known her fiancé for a long time. I was hurt, but tried to respect her decision. Now, Lucy is overwhelmed with wedding planning and has been asking me a lot for help, from organizing her bachelorette party to making DIY decorations. I've been helping out here and there, but recently she asked me to take on more responsibilities, which would require a lot of time and effort. I told her that while I'm happy to help out occasionally, I can't commit to doing so much, especially since she didn't include me as a bridesmaid. Lucy got really upset and said I'm being petty and unsupportive. Our parents were also pressuring me to help her, saying that family should come first. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister with her wedding planning because she didn't include me as a bridesmaid? Now for the comments. Not a-hole. The stuff she's asking for help with is literally part of the bridal party's duties. She wanted close friends, she got close friends. Now they can demonstrate how close they are. This, because Opie was not included as a bridesmaid. She went on business as usual, and did not block out time to help as what sister is asking for is bridesmaid duties. Too bad, so sad. This is what sister wanted. It is not Opie's fault that sister has friends as crappy as she is, and they're not living up to their duties. Anyone complaining is free to help sister out. There is no requirement that a potential guest to a wedding has to jump through bridesmaids' hoops. Expect to be treated as you treat others. Sister knew this would be a snub of Opie. She cannot snub someone and then demand their time and efforts. If I were Opie, I would not sign myself up to be a ghost bridesmaid. Completely agree with everything you said. I just wanted to add, our parents are also pressuring me to help her, saying that family should come first. If family comes first, why didn't the parents say this to Lucy and pressure her into making Opie a bridesmaid? Opie, how much money do you make compared to the bridesmaid? Is it possible Lucy sees you as a free bank, which is why you're being asked to do this stuff instead of them? Family should come first, for you, but not your sister. Not a-hole. You are under zero obligation to help her. She gave roles to other people, but somehow wants the job to be done by Opie. Opie, stand firm and tell her to have her bridesmaids help her. Not a-hole. Am I the a-hole for telling my grandparents/relatives that I didn't move out for college? I moved out as I got kicked out when I turned 18? Hey everyone, I'm 18 male. A few weeks ago, it was my birthday. I turned 18. And as soon as I turned 18, at 12 a.m. while I was sleeping in my room, my dad knocked on the door, turned the lights on, pulled my blanket off, and told me, "Get up and get out of my house. You are 18 now." I already knew I was going to be kicked out at 18, as my mom/dad often mentioned to me in the house. When you're 18, you're out of house. Or they'd say something, "I can't wait till your mother and I get some alone/quiet time when you leave this house at 18. They already had plans to kick me out before anyways, so I already knew it. But I wasn't worried as I have a good/decent savings amount of $5,000 I earned from freelancing on the side. And ever since I turned 18, I've been making a decent/income as well of that. Doing it full-time right now. I can afford an apartment in my area and essentials and some nice stuff as well. So that day got kicked out, I packed all of my stuff in a suitcase, left and slept the night at my best friend's house. Woke up and same day I arranged an apartment through a landlord I know personally. Now I have my own apartment and I'm living by myself. Then today I had a group FaceTime call where my grandparents, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, etc. were all in the FaceTime call. My grandpa asks, "So your father told me you moved out right to attend college. Which college are you attending?" I told my grandpa, "No, grandpa, I didn't move out to attend college. I moved out because I was kicked out." My grandpa's face immediately turned from a happy smiling face to an angry shocked face, and it basically went off on my mom and dad. The man said cuss words I never heard of before. Lol, he scolded my parents like for 2 hours live on FaceTime, with all of our relatives on a group FaceTime call. After the group FaceTime ended, my mom/dad gave me a call personally and they were pissed. They said, "Never before has your grandpa insulted us today, and he did because of you, a-hole." Cuss word, and some more cuss words till they finally end a call. So am I the a-hole for telling my grandparents that I got kicked out? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Who does that to their child? Narcissistic, abusive a-holes do that. Fair. Not all parents should be parents. Not the a-hole. Who does this to their own child on their 18th birthday? They lied because they knew how their actions would look to others. If they were embarrassed, then they only have themselves to blame. I'm glad you told your grandparents the truth. And I'm so sorry that your 18th was so rubbish. Hopefully you can celebrate your birthday with your friends soon. That's if you haven't already, as well as leaving your parents behind. Yeah, I think I might celebrate my birthday with my homies later. A small one. And your granddad too. He's got your back more than your so-called parents have shown. Let's see. You told the truth and your parents think the very natural consequences they had to endure is your fault. Sounds like you might be the only mature one in your family of 3. Not they all. And an extra blown kiss to your badass grandpa. It also is highly illegal to kick someone out without a 30-day notice. And here, even if they claim they gave him a verbal notice, it doesn't count because Opie was a minor 30 days ago. Can't legally get into an agreement like that. File police report, illegal eviction plus harassment, then sue the heck out of them. Next story. Am I the a-hole for quietly packing my stuff and leaving my family's house without telling anyone after my dad threatened to kick me out? I, 23 female, live at home. I am in grad school and work part-time plus intern at an office. I graduate in June and I've been applying to jobs as much as I can so I can finally move out. My sister, 20 female, also lives at home but is doing school online and doesn't work. I try to help with chores around the house as much as possible, although it's difficult since I leave the house early in the morning and come home late at night. Last week, I came home and there were clean dishes in the dishwasher. I said I'm gonna take a quick shower then empty the dishwasher, and my dad went on a rant about how I'm useless, I never help around the house, and that my sister is always the one doing everything. I explained that I do help, that just because they haven't seen me help doesn't mean that I don't. He asked me to give him an example, and I told him that I took the garbage out the night before. The conversation escalated to him saying that I should shut up and not argue any longer because he can easily make me homeless if he wanted to. I said okay and went upstairs. The next morning, while everyone was asleep, I packed my things and left, and I've been sleeping in my car for a week and taking showers at my gym. Later in the day after I left, my parents called and my mom texted me asking where I am when I didn't come home when I was supposed to. I didn't reply, and blocked my entire family's numbers and social medias and haven't spoken to them since. They have been calling and texting my friends asking them where I am. I haven't told any of my friends that I'm sleeping in my car, so I got very confused text from my friends asking me what's going on and why my parents are asking where I am and if I'm safe and okay. I told my closest friend that I left home and that I'm safe, and let her know to tell my parents that I'm fine but I have no desire to speak to them anymore. Now they've been begging my friend to disclose my location and asking her to ask me to allow them to speak to me. I went to my friends yesterday and she told me that what I did was awful and that I should speak to them. I told her that they threatened to make me homeless, so I left by my own volition. But she's insisting that making them worry about my safety is a horrible thing to do. But I honestly think I just gave them what they asked for. They wanted to get rid of me, so I left. Am I the a-hole for leaving and refusing to communicate with them? Edit. My mom was there when this happened and she was on my dad's side as well. So she's aware of the incident and knows that I was threatened to be made homeless. They also said that I was most likely never going to get a job and was going to stay at home forever even though I have 2 jobs right now. Internship is unpaid though, and I'm actively looking for a full-time job. And yes, they've done this before. Not day hall, but maybe talk to your local police department and let them know that if your parents try to file a missing persons report, it's a waste of time because you're not missing. They threatened to kick you out for not helping, so you left. Sounds like a win-win to me. Can you talk to any of your friends about staying with them while you get things together? This is important. People leaving harmful relationships can often have the perpetrators file missing person reports. Another method of exerting control. Also, obviously, OP is not the a-hole. Info: I assume the dishwasher incident is the straw that broke the camel's back. Otherwise, secretly moving out and cutting communication does seem a tad extreme if it was the only trigger. In any case, you're an adult and I hope it doesn't take long for you to find your own place. They threatened to make her homeless, so she left. How is that an overreaction? Like, they clearly aren't interested in having her there except to do stuff for them when they demand it. The parents sound like those people who give missing reasons responses when asked why their children doesn't talk to them. Dad threatened to throw her out while mom was there, and now they both act like they don't know why she left? When I was in high school, my mom was talking to my aunt about sending me to another state to live with aunt. I was a good kid. Worked part-time, 3.5 GPA, theater kid. My crime? Mom found out I was hooking up. I was a junior, so 16 or 17. I moved out less than a week later. I was renting a room with an older guy a friend was dating. It wasn't the greatest plan, but I was about to be uprooted from the town I lived in my whole life, right before my senior year of high school. So yeah, sometimes it doesn't take a lot of incidents. It just takes one big one. She's 23. She is allowed to leave home and go no contact. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter she has to pay $200 a month extra rent, or I'll kick her out after she made me lose my bonus? I, 53 female, have a daughter Macy, 23 female, who lives with me. For my work, I'm a manager at a fast food chain that I have worked at for 31 years. Due to my long time with the company, I was awarded an extra $200 bonus if my shop took enough money, and I know the owner well. However, I was asked by him not to tell anyone about the bonus, or he would have to take it away, as everyone else would demand the same. I agreed to this and said I wouldn't tell anyone, and I didn't. I'm on good terms with him, and we follow each other on social media, so I refrained from telling Macy, as she can't keep secrets well. But last month, around a year after I got the bonus, my daughter found out that I had managed to pay off a credit card and wanted to know how, as I didn't think I'd pay it off for another year. I told her the interest had gone down, but she didn't believe me and kept pestering me about it for days. I finally told her I would tell her if she wouldn't tell anyone else, so I told her I got a raise at work. Despite having the bonus for a year, my daughter wanted to get dinner to celebrate, so we went to her favorite restaurant, which is quite pricey. She took a picture of our meals and tagged me on Facebook with the caption, "Mom got a pay rise," which in her words she thought nobody would notice, as nobody uses Facebook anymore. Sadly, I didn't notice until the morning after, but the damage was already done. The owner called me into his office and was very sincere when he told me he couldn't give me the bonus anymore, as a colleague had complained having seen the post. I also apologized, saying I kept it a secret as long as I could, as I know my daughter can't keep secrets well. When I got home, I demanded her to remove the post and told her she lost me $200 a month. She felt bad, but told me it wasn't her fault, as I didn't tell her the full extent of the pay rise and how it was so much money. I told her that unless she starts paying me $200 a month extra, that she will have to find somewhere else to live to make up for it. My oldest, Mia, 26 female, thinks I'm being harsh on her, that it was my fault for telling her as I know what she's like. However, my daughter pays $200 a month rent and spends the rest of her money on luxury items like expensive bags, perfume, and makeup. I'm not demanding she pay an unreasonable amount. If anything, $400 a month is incredibly cheap compared to other house prices. Am I the a-hole for demanding my daughter pay $200 a month extra rent, or I'll kick her out? Now for the comments. Your boss is the a-hole for making the bonus so secret and conditional and for removing it like that. I don't know if that's normal in the kind of industry you're in/country, but in mine that would be illegal actually. I don't know why you're focusing more on your child than on the unfair labor practice. Yes, she was wrong for posting it if you told her not to do so. And sure, charge her for what she cost you, but she's not the villain in my eyes. Nor are you. Not stay home. Also, it is literally illegal in the US, federally illegal, to forbid employees from discussing their wages with their coworkers and/or to penalize them for doing so. You can literally take it to the Department of Labor, and they will probably either get your pay reinstated or get you a settlement. Do you live in the United States? If so, it is illegal to forbid employees from discussing their compensation, and this may have been unlawful retaliation. I don't actually know this. We have a family friend whose husband is a lawyer, so I will consult him about it. Definitely talk to someone familiar with local labor laws to explore your options. In my opinion, the biggest a-hole in this story is your employer. Regardless of whether it's legal or not, it's a super crappy and unfair labor practice. Everyone sucks here, but mostly your boss. Seriously, contact a local labor attorney because this sounds extremely suspicious, and it's illegal to stop employees from discussing wages in most places. Super illegal to retaliate for that. If your boss is doing that, who knows what other labor laws they're breaking? A local labor attorney can better advise you on what all you may be owed. I'd be surprised if you're being properly compensated for overtime and other such things, if this is how they're doing business. You can't be mad at your daughter or coworkers, but it's misplaced. The blame goes to the boss. Anything else is an intentional distraction. Now, for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my son's teacher to F off when she tried to force me to invite 24 kids to his birthday party? I got a call from my son's 6th teacher today. Let's say her name is Ms. Goldbaum. She says, "Hi, are you Al's fake name father?" I say yes, and ask if everything is okay. She tells me that she understands he is having a birthday party and that he invited a few of his friends from class, but not everyone. I said yes. There are a few kids in there that he has problems with. And also, I don't think we can really handle hosting 24 kids and their parents. She then tells me that there is a rule that if any kids in the class are invited, that all kids in the class are invited. I told her it is an event off school hours on a private property in my home. She can no more tell me what I do there and who I can and can't invite, any more than I can decide who is invited to her Thanksgiving dinner. She then tells me there is a good reason for the rule, since kids get their feelings hurt if they get left out. So then I pointed out to her that there are 24 kids in the class. If their parents attend a party with them, then that can be upwards of 72 people. And I told her that's just not a reasonable thing to ask. I also point out that he has friends from other classes attending. So do I have to invite that whole other class too? She then said, "Al's in my class. He is under my supervision. This is my rule." I then told her that Al is only under her supervision while he was in class. I'm the one throwing the party, and she doesn't get to make rules for my house or me. She then said if it involves her class, she does. After a bit of back and forth on this, I lost my cool. I said, "Lady, it's pretty clear that you're too used to bossing around kids who have to listen to you, and that you don't seem to understand that your little fiefdom ends at the end of the school day and doesn't go further than schoolhouse gates. I am not a 6-year-old in your class. I'm a 38-year-old union electrician planning a private event in my own home, off school hours. If you think you're the one to make the rules for me, in my home in which I paid a mortgage on, you can go F yourself. And there isn't a goddamn thing you can do about it." She then kind of stammered and I ended the call. My wife agrees that the school has no business telling us who we can and can't invite into our home, and that they don't make the rules for our house. However, she says I went too far in telling Ms. Goldbaum to go F herself. I'm very comfortable with telling her that she has no right to tell us who we can and can't invite into our home, and that it is crazy I might have to invite up to 72 people for my son to have any friends from his class attend. But in truth, I do kind of wish I left that last "go F yourself" part off. But my friends at work and a few other parents tell me someone needed to take her down a peg since she was getting too big for her britches and deserves a lesson about overstepping. So am I the a-hole? Edit, to address a few common questions or things people brought up. First, we invited roughly 9 out of 24 kids in his class. 1 or 2 maybe from other classes. I'm a little embarrassed to say I'm not totally sure because I feel like I should be, but that's what it is. Secondly, most of the invites were done by my wife directly texting the other kids' families. There were a few kids where my son wanted to invite them, but I don't have their family's contact info. So we gave him a few sealed envelopes with notes inside saying we understand the boys are friends and that we're having an event for his birthday, and even aside from that, we'd like to set up playdates. From there, The family contacts us, and then myself and my wife do the invites after we chat with the family for a bit. My son himself doesn't do the invites. He is a 6-year-old boy. We do the invites through the other parents. Not day hall, and I think you need to escalate this. The only way you'd have been out of line would be if you let him hand out invitations during class time. Ask for a meeting between the school administrator and his teacher. At the beginning of the meeting, apologize for losing your temper and your language, but then go on to politely explain what happened during the phone call and ask the administrator if this is school policy. I'm guessing it's not, and this teacher is way out of line with his request. Administration probably needs to know what she's up to, so she doesn't keep doing it to other parents. Chances are she's got a history of crap like this based on her self-righteous attitude. My wife is looking over my shoulder at all of this, and particularly likes this idea. And she is the smart one, so you might be onto something. My 28 female husband, 29 male, has a pregnant affair partner, and my in-laws and parents are encouraging it. Okay, so me and my husband have been married for a little over 5 years now. We've always wanted to have a big family with lots of kids. The problem was that I just could not get pregnant no matter how many positions or times we've tried. When I went to the doctor last year, I was told that I'm infertile and will not have children naturally, and we should best try for an IVF. Since then, I have been cutting corners and scarping every last dollar I have for an IVF. My husband was initially on board, but early this year he started to get iffy on the IVF. Kept emphasizing adoption and discouraging the IVF, and I definitely considered it, but I want to have a kid of my own blood first before I adopt another child. Well, me, my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law, Jane, were chatting on WhatsApp. And I told my sister-in-law the amount of money that I still need to save for multiple rounds of IVF, just in case the first one doesn't work. And if the IVF doesn't work, then I will adopt a child. Jane asked if I was really on board with adopting my husband's illegitimate child. My heart started beating really fast, and I was so confused when my mother-in-law chimed in that I was truly a kind child for forgiving my husband's affair, and even taking in their kid. I made an excuse and hung up the phone when my mind was racing. I tried to convince myself that Jane and mother were playing jokes on me, so I went upstairs to ask my husband for his side of things. He paled rather fast and asked me where I heard it from. I told him Jane and mother told me, and that's when he decided it would be good to tell me what he was thinking. He's been hooking up with one of his old flames, and she got pregnant. He told me that he loved me, but he didn't want to go through extra stress to have a child. So maybe I could forgive them and adopt their kid. Maybe even create a bond with it. I was completely heartbroken by his audacity. He dropped 2 bombs on me that day and expected me to just take it like that? I more or less ran out of the house to my parents' house because I really needed some comfort. I told my parents the whole thing, and they just told me that while the cheating was wrong, I should step up and become a mother to this kid, because they know how much I wanted a kid and how great of a mother I'll be. I can't stop crying because it seems that no one is on my side. I know I should probably try to get a divorce, but my mind is all over the place. My heart hurts so bad that I can't even get out of bed. Can anyone help me? Is there any advice I could get in this? Now for the top advice. The mother of the child is planning on giving up her parental rights? Leave him. He has betrayed your trust. At what point was he planning on telling you? Seriously, I don't believe there would be a right time to bring up his affair child ever. It will hurt no matter when he's gonna bring it up. After the child is born? Still too soon to forgive him while she's still dealing with infertility. After X many years. He kept this a secret while Opie thought they always had a loving and honest relationship. And her whole world is turned upside down, which it already is anyway. The only time someone could bring it up without throwing away the whole relationship would have been way before that. But then again, they could have just asked someone to be a surrogate. But nope. He actually wanted to bang someone else for that. It wasn't about finding an easier alternative. Don't know if surrogacy is actually cheaper than IVF. It was about having intimacy and impregnating another woman for him. That's the thing. He was never going to bring up his affair child. He was going to act as if they were just adopting a child from this woman. Be thankful you didn't already have a child with him before he did this. The audacity to hope the OP will become the mother of his illegitimate affair child. Why will your husband's affair partner give up her parental rights? Instead, she'll try to form a happy family with your husband, who will, of course, divorce you. If you stay, your future is 1. To be tarred as the evil stepmother in the future when kiddo asks why his actual mom isn't in the picture. Or 2. To accept an open marriage where your husband will impregnate various old flames and leave you to raise their children. Leave ASAP. Run for the hills. Seriously, Opie's not a concubine. My jaw is on the freaking floor right now. OMG. Girl, I'm so sorry this is happening to you right now. It's like some bad movie plot. Your family and his are out of their minds for even considering that. What in the actual hell? That is so beyond warped, man. Oh yeah, let me just raise this kid that my husband humped and some other woman behind my back. I want a baby so bad I'll just take anyone's. That's crazy. Divorce him. Like yesterday. And get yourself into some therapy ASAP so you can talk to someone and get some goddamn support from a non-lunatic. I hope so much things work out for you. Hang in there, sis. Next story is titled, Lost my girlfriend and unborn baby in a car accident over a year ago. My parents keep acting like it was a good thing. I, 24 male, miss her and our baby every day. They're always on my mind. I was with her since we were 16 and wanted to marry her after we had our son. She was over 7 months pregnant when she got into an accident coming back from visiting her family with her brother. My world had never been the same since. I was isolated from everyone after it happened. Didn't want to be part of the rest of the world no more, even more with COVID. Once when I was drinking, I was thinking about joining them, my girl and son, then called my brother and he stayed with me. Finally started therapy but had to stop because of work, and then school was kicking my behind. For the past months, I'm trying to get back into seeing my family more and make myself leave my apartment. My parents keep talking about me starting to go out with other people. They literally tried to set me up with some girl once, and I blew up on them. They keep acting like losing my girlfriend was something good because now I don't have to worry about raising a baby, my son that I wanted and loved more than anything, and can focus on my life as a single man. Every time they bring it up, they talk about how I wouldn't have been able to do anything with a baby, and I should appreciate that now I don't have that burden anymore. I try so hard to ignore them and change the subject, because then it turns into an argument and I'm the one who ends up dealing with negative feelings. Many times, I tell them not to talk about my girlfriend or my son like that because they meant everything to me. I tell them how it hurts. They don't mention it all the time, just when my dating life comes up. It's hurting me more now and I don't know how to get them to just stop. Or what better way can I express how much it hurts me when they talk like that? Since what I'm saying now don't seem to be working, what's a better way to get through to them how messed up their words are? Your parents are incredibly cold-hearted. Maybe seek comfort elsewhere. Friends? I love my friends, but they're not people I can talk to about this. None of them lost someone or are parents. That's why I wanted to have more support from my parents since they actually are parents. I get that, but they have demonstrated to you that they aren't capable of giving you the support you need. You may really benefit from a grief support group, perhaps one geared toward grieving parents, pregnancy loss, loss of a significant other, or complicated grief. Ask your therapist if he or she knows of any. Support groups are wonderful intentional communities if you can find one. I'm so sorry you're suffering through this alone. I'm so sorry that you have that from your family, and sorry for your loss. If I were you, I would not want to see them at all. It really comes down to whether you want a relationship with them still, and whether they want a relationship with you. My way of dealing with it would be just to leave every time they bring it up and tell them why I'm leaving. If you cannot respect the people I love, I do not want to hear another word from you, even if I love you as family, which I would start doubting if I still do. I'm very sorry for your loss. I suspect your parents are attempting to get you to look forward instead of back, but what they're doing isn't working and only making things worse. My guess is that this isn't malicious, or maybe I just like to believe it isn't. If you haven't talked to a therapist about it, maybe you should consider it. It might be helpful both in dealing with your loss and your parents. My parents weren't happy when I told them we were having a baby. They wanted me to be married and all that, So unfortunately, I think they do feel it's really a good thing. I don't know about therapy right now. Next story. Found out that my 18 sister stole my boyfriend's keys, phone, $200, and medication, but my parents sided with her when I confronted her and threatened to cut me off if I tell my boyfriend. I don't know what to do. I, female 25, have a boyfriend, male 26, who suffers from a medical condition and pays for medication. He works hard despite his illness to help with rent and to afford medication and car repair. We visit my parents' house regularly. My boyfriend loves my parents and my 18 sister and loves being around them. His parents are both deceased, and he calls my family warm and loving. And they love him too, so there have been no issues, except for a few days ago when we were at my parents' house for dinner. My sister stayed in her room the whole time except for when dinner was ready. Usually she'd sit with us to chatter. I thought it was strange of her, but didn't overthink it. My boyfriend came back from the bathroom to find that his phone and medication and $200 in cash were gone, even his car keys. We were so confused, but kept looking all over the house. My sister came downstairs asking what we were looking for. We told her and she didn't say anything, just went upstairs. We couldn't find them. My boyfriend was so confused, we ended up taking an Uber home and left a car at my parents' house. My boyfriend kept worrying about going to the doctor to get his medication, and it was difficult. We also struggled with a car key. I visited my parents' house the next day to conduct extensive search. My sister was at school at the time. I entered her room and surprisingly found all of my boyfriend's missing things. I was in complete shock. I showed my mom and she began rationalizing and making excuses for my sister. I was so mad I ended up confronting my sister after she got home from school, and mom begged me to lie to my boyfriend and tell him I found his stuff in the bathroom cabinet after I mentioned that my boyfriend has the right to press charges. But I refused to lie to him. I told her she shouldn't encourage stealing, especially since my sister gave zero reasons for why she stole from my boyfriend. Mom got upset and involved my dad, who agreed and said that if I shouldn't agree on and encourage my boyfriend to press charges, and said I should stick to the bathroom cabinet lie. But I insisted in letting my boyfriend know so he could realize that the house he enters isn't safe for him anymore. Mom lost it on me when my sister started crying, saying I'll ruin her relationship with my boyfriend. Mom said she couldn't believe I chose to side with a guy I've known for only a year over my sister and started bad-mouthing him. But he doesn't even know what's going on around him. He cares so much about my family and always wants a good relationship with them, but I'm not sure if I should tell him. My parents said they'll cut me out and no longer welcome us in the house if I tell my boyfriend, and he ends up getting police involved. They said my sister doesn't deserve to be rejected by universities over a stupid mistake that she already apologized for. Edit. I don't think it's the first time she's told based on my mom's reaction. She should be mad at her, not me. She should be talking about consequences to her, not me. Mom actually thinks it's my sister versus my boyfriend in the conflict, and keeps shaming me for siding with the wronged party. If my boyfriend stole from my sister, I'd make sure to tell her and feel very ashamed and disappointed in him. But Mom has always been overprotective of my sister, no matter what she does, which is wrong. Now for the advice. Tell your boyfriend. He needs to at least know about it. What he chooses to do is up to him, but don't enable your sister's behavior. Pretty soon she will be stealing from her family. What in the actual hell is wrong with your parents? And your sister? You absolutely should tell your boyfriend and let him make the choice in pressing charges. How old is your sister? Old enough to know better than to steal, I'm guessing? This is a serious thing. She didn't just take a few bucks from his wallet. $200 is a lot of money, and stealing his medication is a federal offense, I'm pretty sure. She gave you zero reasons, she just suddenly decided to steal all of this from him? That's why my parents are concerned, especially my mom. I was able to retrieve the items, but the cash was not returned. The money wasn't there, and my sister didn't say where she took it. I feel so ashamed of what my sister did and how parents were defending her, and bad-mouthing my boyfriend who considers them and sees them as his family. This might even affect my relationship with him. I honestly cannot blame him for any action he decides to take, because I know how much he works hard to get his medication and save money for car repair. Last story is titled,
My female 20s, soon-to-be sister-in-law, female 30s, is planning to blindside us with a pregnancy announcement at our rehearsal dinner this weekend. Am I the crazy one? I just need advice from people who don't know me, as I cannot discuss with family or friends that know the individual. My soon-to-be mother-in-law called me this morning to inform that my soon-to-be sister-in-law called her and told her she is 5 to 6 weeks pregnant, so she thinks, and that she is planning to announce it at our rehearsal dinner. She told mother-in-law not to tell anybody else, that they want to blindside us and surprise everyone altogether. Thankfully, my mother-in-law likes me enough to warn me ahead of time with this information, but now I am not sure what to do with it. Now, for some background, we are having an under 40 guests wedding. Everyone is included for the rehearsal dinner, including our friends and my own family. Since we are having such a small wedding, I have my 3 soon-to-be sister-in-laws as my bridesmaids. The pregnant sister-in-law has been a thorn in my side. She hated the dress color I wanted. She hated the shoe size suggested. She's mad because I'm taking away from a weekend off. I have tried to be gracious in all of this and pick and choose my battles. She also screamed at me one day that I was taking too much attention for the wedding away from her weekend of seeing family she doesn't see often, but doesn't make a point to go see them. She also was mad when we had our daughter 3 years ago, because we had a first grandbaby/great-grandbaby. So there is a long list of things I've done to apparently victimize her specifically. And at this point, I'm just worn down. I feel as though I should either say something to my mother-in-law to say something to her, or do I go to her directly? I think she sees her peeing on a stick as an opportunity to upstage our entire wedding and bring the attention back to her. This is her first pregnancy, and previously, when discussing babies with them, I was informed she didn't want to start trying until fall 2021. So I imagine this is somewhat of an, oops, guess we're doing this sooner. When we had our daughter, we waited until I was 15 weeks to announce anything. So I'm not sure why she feels the need to do so at 5 to 6 weeks. We're also all staying after the wedding to go to a resort for 4 days with the entire family, that she could use as an opportunity to tell them. What would you do in this situation? Do I say something directly to her? Do I just let her make her announcement? To be honest, let your fiancé handle things. He can call his sister and tell her that if there's any pregnancy announcements at the dinner, she will be escorted out and not be part of the wedding at all. She also screamed at me one day that I was taking too much attention for the wedding away from her weekend of seeing family she doesn't see often, but doesn't make a point to go see them. She also was mad when we had our daughter 3 years ago because we had first grandbaby/great-grandbaby. So there is a long list of things I've done to apparently victimize her specifically, and at this point I'm just worn down. I'd strongly reconsider having this woman as a bridesmaid. OP to husband, to mother-in-law, to sister-in-law. Personally, I handle my family and let my wife handle her family. It just makes sense. I would also nudge mother-in-law to tell her it would be unwise to spread the news this early. As someone who has had a number of miscarriages, it is really hard to be getting congratulations while dealing with a loss. When you spread it that early, it generally gets a life of its own and is spreading further than you expect. Have mother-in-law scare her a bit. She seems like a self-centered diva to me from what you have said. It may need some stronger boundaries. Congratulate her on Facebook. Nuclear option. I was coming here to say exactly this. I just heard the news. Congratulations, sister-in-law. We're so excited for the new edition. Maybe add in that if being in the wedding party is too stressful, that they would understand completely and assure they would be happy if she attends. If she gets mad that you announced it, feign ignorance and tell her you understand that her hormones are probably the cause of her emotional upheaval.
Am I the a-hole for telling my brother that maybe he's getting a visit from karma? I have a brother who has laid off from his software job almost a year ago. He hasn't been able to find anything since, and has been complaining on LinkedIn asking people for help. He tried Uber and food delivery, but hated it. Months ago, I told him to simplify his resume and apply for retail or fast food jobs, but he keeps using his tech resume because he thinks it impresses people. After a year of searching, it's clear that it doesn't. Now he's asking if he can move in with me because he has to sell his house before it goes to foreclosure. I told him no, partly because he has always looked down on me for getting married and for neither me nor my wife having fancy tech jobs with benefits. My wife thinks he is arrogant and a player because when he was doing well in his career, he'd always bring around a different woman, and my wife had to pretend to be polite while knowing none of those relationships would last. I told my brother that he should look for a small apartment. He complained that even the cheaper apartments are around $2,500 a month now, and he feels like he'd just be throwing that money away. I explained that my house is already chaotic with 3 kids, and adding him and all his stuff would only make things crazier. He suggested he could buy a shed and store some of his things in a garage until he gets back on his feet. He also mentioned that the commute from my place would be long, but I should understand that he's already weighed the pros and cons, and he thinks he can make it work. I told him I've weighed the pros and cons too, and it's not going to work. When he sells his house, he needs to find somewhere else to live, because he's not moving in with us. He told me he'd remember this and that I didn't help him when he was at his lowest. I reminded him that I don't recall him ever helping us when we were struggling, so maybe karma is paying him a visit now. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, but based on the way you talk about him in this post, it also sounds like you don't like your brother. I'm kinda wondering why I thought you'd let him move in with you in the first place. Maybe his ego? I don't know. Man, you definitely don't like your brother, eh? That's another reason I don't have to have him live with me. You're the a-hole. I already know I'll get downvoted, so go ahead. Look, you have every right not to let him move in with you. That's fair. You have your own family to worry about. But your question is whether or not you are the a-hole for telling him that he is getting a visit from karma. Yes you are. And you know you are, which is why you are asking the question. A non-a-hole response to his equally wrong and out-of-line comment would be, I'm sorry you feel that way. I wish I could help, but I really can't. Instead, you elected to shove a knife in and twist it. Whether or not your brother deserves this is immaterial. One is an a-hole based on one's own actions. Your actions were poor. Not the a-hole. You should have bit your tongue and not made that karma comment. But the main thing is that he cannot just demand of you what he does. It is perfectly okay if you don't want him moving in. So clearly, he is the a-hole for trying to press you to do something you don't want to do, and which would have a huge effect on your daily life and on your family. It's nicer than saying my wife can't stand his face. Next story. Am I the a-hole for taking my daughter's college fund back after she said she was going no contact? A bit of background. I'm a 45-year-old single mom of 2 kids, Ella 18 female and Jake 16 male. My husband passed away when the kids were young, and I've worked hard to support them both emotionally and financially ever since. He left behind a life insurance policy, and I've been saving part of that money for their college education. Ella has always dreamed of going to a prestigious college, and we've talked a lot about how important education is. I made sure she knew that the money I was saving for her and Jake was specifically for their education. I couldn't afford things like vacations or new cars, but I wanted them to avoid student loans. However, recently things have become difficult with Ella. She started dating a guy named Matt, 19 female, a few months ago, and I feel like her personality has changed since then. She's become distant, rude, and often dismisses anything I say. She'd say hurtful things, like that I smother her or treat her like a child. I've tried giving her space. But last week, during a heated argument, she said that once she goes to college, she's going no contact with me and won't look back. I was devastated. After everything I've sacrificed for her, hearing that she would cut me out was heartbreaking. I waited a few days to cool down, but I eventually decided that if she truly planned to cut me out of her life after college, I wouldn't continue funding her education. I told her that if she wanted to go no contact, she should consider her college fund off the table, and I would split it between Jake and myself for other things. She was furious and accused me of being vindictive, manipulative, and selfish. She believes I'm trying to control her by using the money against her. I've spoken to a few friends about this, and their opinions are divided. Some say that I'm within my rights since the money is mine to use as I see fit. Others say that I'm punishing her for her feelings and using the money to control her. So am I the a-hole for taking away my daughter's college fund after she said she planned to go no contact with me? No contact would mean no financial contact too. Why is your daughter so surprised that you'd financially cut her off when she cuts contact with you? I have this feeling the new boyfriend is stupid enough to think Opie is going to transfer hundreds of thousands of dollars to the daughter to pay for a full college degree. Money that I'm sure he has plans for, and it's not the daughter's tuition and board. That's what I thought too. He wants to cut out the other influences on her, then manipulate her to get the money. If she comes around on the no-contact approach, that's okay, but be wary of him trying to get her to wrest control of the funds in one bite. Depending on how twisted he is, they could fake a breakup, only for her to ask for financial independence a month later. This is not meant to throw shade at OP's daughter. Young love is just more easily exploited than most parents want to realize. There are two big questions here. 1, is it the new boyfriend's influence? Or 2, is there an ongoing underlying issue with you and your daughter that you're either not mentioning or not addressing? Of course, we had arguments in the past, but not out of the ordinary. I believe her boyfriend is a bad influence. My best guess is boyfriend knows about the fund. Let her know you have always controlled it, that you sacrificed to not dip into it, that it's never been her money, and how she thinks she could even go to college while not having contact with you about that. I'm not going to weigh in on this because I feel there is not enough context for it. But, OP, there's a good chance your daughter is being abused/manipulated. It sounds like the boyfriend is isolating her. Please keep an open mind that she might be a victim of manipulation. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my stepmom she's not an incentive for me to change my last name? My parents were never married, so I, 16 male, have my mom's last name. She passed away when I was 5. At that time, my dad was already married to my stepmom. I never really warmed up to her, mainly because I picked up on the tension between her and my mom. After my mom died, things got worse. My stepmom would say things like, "You're finally where you belong," and "I'm so happy you're my little boy now." Those comments made me feel really uncomfortable and unhappy. My dad was never very hands-on as a parent, and whenever I expressed how I felt, he would just tell me to accept being loved. 2 months after my mom passed, my oldest half-sister was born, and with all the changes, I felt really alone and sad. My stepmom was always trying to get closer to me, sometimes even hiring babysitters for an entire day so she could spend time with me to make me love her. It hurt her when I shut her out, but I hated hearing her call me hers. She would tell me that I was hers now and that I needed a mommy. She even used baby talk with me and kept doing it until I was almost 12. I think she thought it would make me warm up to her faster. She also started calling me by my middle name, James, because it was her dad's first name, instead of using my first name. Sometimes she'd ask if I wanted to change my name to James and be Grandpa's Jr. I always said no. When I was around 8 or 9, they tried to change both my first and last name. The first time, they didn't take me to court, but the judge said I needed to be present. So the next time, I was brought to court and asked how I felt about the name change. I said I didn't want to change my name, so they couldn't go through with it. I kept my name, my mom's last name included. It still bothers my stepmom that I don't share their last name. She has 3 girls and really wants her only son to share the same last name as the rest of the family. A few days ago, she talked to me again, trying to convince me to change my first and last name, like they had tried years ago. She told me to do it as a gift to her, saying it would make her really happy, and I could give it to her as a Christmas or birthday present. I told her that she wasn't a reason for me to change my name because I don't want to be her son, and I don't see her as my mom. She started crying and then called me spoiled and bratty. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your stepmom is going to push you into going very low contact after you are of age. They ask, you said no. They need to accept this. And to then call you spoiled and bratty because you want to continue to honor your mom? Not nice. Dad too. He doesn't want to be a parent even though he has 4 kids. I don't respect that, and even less when he lets his wife get away with this kind of thing and backs her up even. Yes, he's the main reason you have to face this situation. He should grow a pair and confront his wife about her attitude. But it's so much easier to let things be and pave the way for a full no contact once you're on your feet. I'm sorry for all this. Big hugs. Not the a-hole. Your stepmom seems absolutely deluded. and your father just seems to want to go along with whatever she wants so that she can be happy, with no regard to your thoughts or feelings. They're giant a-holes for wanting to erase every part of your mother, and especially for trying to force a connection you don't want. I'm very curious, how did your father and stepmother meet? From what I'm getting, it seems like infidelity might have been involved. You're not her son. You don't want a connection with her, and them trying to change your name behind your back is scummy. Perhaps telling her the truth will finally get her to give up on this fantasy she has of you being her child. It's also interesting how quickly she was to turn on you when you rebuffed her affection. Not the a-hole. She needs therapy and needs to learn boundaries. They knew each other growing up and dated in high school but broke up before senior year. She always wanted to get back together with Dad, but before they met up again, he'd met Mom, and they had me. They broke up when I was so young, but even still, I think my stepmom was so jealous that Dad had a kid before they could get back together. It wasn't hard to see she hated my mom back then. There were times she'd look so pissed when she'd see my mom. She's also jealous that Mom had a boy while she had 3 girls. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents to not include my stepdaughter in their will? I, 35 female, have 2 kids, 17, twins, boy and girl, and 1 stepdaughter, 18, when I met when she was 11. The other day, I was at my parents' house going over their estate planning, since I'm the executor. While reviewing their plan, I noticed that they had split their assets in half. 1 half for me and my 2 siblings, and the other half to be evenly distributed among their grandkids, including my stepdaughter. The estate isn't huge, but the amount each grandkid would get is still pretty substantial, think new car money. I asked my parents about it, and they said they wanted to be fair. Well, I thought that was very generous of them. I told them I don't think it was necessary for my stepdaughter to be included, and that it would be better to split the inheritance between their 5 biological grandkids. When we got home, my husband told me he had overheard my conversation and said I was being an a-hole for excluding his daughter and potentially alienating her from the family. I explained my reasoning. My stepdaughter is the only child/grandchild/niece on her mom's side, and she's well taken care of. Her grandparents on that side own multiple properties. Her uncles are financially well off and live in a high cost of living area, and there's a good chance she won't have any cousins. Essentially, she's already set up for a life financially. On the other hand, my parents' estates would be split among 5 grandkids, and their collective net worth is significantly lower than my husband's family. I also asked him if his parents had included my kids in their estate planning, but he refused to answer. Despite my reasoning, he still called me an a-hole and accused me of not caring about his daughter's future. I believe I was just trying to be fair and look out for my kids and their cousins. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Everyone is in their feelings about it instead of looking at the actual facts. Your parents have 5 grandkids outside of her. Your parents can always leave her sentimental items. Your stepdaughter will get a large inheritance to herself. Your children aren't in your husband's parents' will. The last one being the biggest one. Why is it okay for them to exclude your children, but not the reverse? We don't support the hypocritic oath here. My mom plans on giving her a family heirloom jewelry set that is her birthstone, which I think is nice and thoughtful. It's not that I want to completely exclude her, I just feel it would be more meaningful towards my nibblings and kids. So then she's not left out. I'd ask your husband the exact question I ask. Why is he holding your parents to different standards than his own parents? Not the a-hole. You stated your opinion and it doesn't sound like you pressured them. I think your parents are kind, and it could be explained to your stepdaughter so her feelings wouldn't be hurt. Your husband needs to answer your question. Is your stepdaughter more important to him than his children with you? Does he not care about her future? If the stepdaughter's relatives' money was split with your children, it sounds like your future would be more secure. But I think it would be unfair to expect her relatives to share with unrelated children, and I would think they would not want to do so. I didn't pressure them. I just told them I didn't think it was necessary. I didn't even go into the details with them and left it at that. Nothing was changed over the course of our meeting. She is also set to receive a family heirloom jewelry set from my mom that happened to be her birthstone, which I thought was nice. And I don't expect them to share their assets with my kids. It's only ever been brought up with my husband because of this argument. I know she's set to receive a large portion, including 2 houses, because I saw some paperwork while cleaning my husband's office. It's a bit out of date, so I don't know if there's been an update, but it was drafted and I saw it shortly after he and I got married. I didn't bring it up to him then because I didn't expect my kids to be included. Last story. Am I the a-hole for suing my best friend of 13 years after he pushed me into his shark-infested waters as a prank? I, 27 male, have been best friends with M, 27 male, for 13 years, and we've always been super close. Last week, we went on vacation to a beach state, and everything was going great, until something happened that changed everything. We were hanging out near a pier, taking pictures. There were hammerhead sharks in the water, clearly visible but far enough away that they weren't a direct threat. Suddenly, out of nowhere, my friend shoved me into the water. I freaked out, screaming, thinking I could die. Thankfully, a lifeguard pulled me out right away, but I was absolutely terrified. When I got out, I saw my friend laughing and filming the entire thing. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even say a word. I just went back to the hotel, packed my things, and finished the trip on my own. Later that night, he sent me the video, still making fun of the whole thing. I felt completely humiliated and betrayed. He had literally put my life in danger for a joke. When I got home, I spoke to a lawyer and decided to sue him. I used the video as evidence and he was served papers yesterday. He called me furious, saying it was just a joke and that I'm overreacting after 13 years of friendship. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He's a prick. He shouldn't have endangered 13 years of friendship by scaring the heck out of you and possibly injuring you for chuckles. I read a story some years ago about a bridesmaid who pushed the bride into a pool as a joke. Bride broke her neck and was left paralyzed. It's not funny to do pranks like that. Not the a-hole. People really don't realize how dangerous falls or pushing someone can actually be, especially with dangerous surroundings.